I now call the April 1st, 2025 Finance Committee meeting to order at 6:45 PM. The chair would entertain a motion to approve claims.
So moved.
Oh, perfect. Can you read all of
Yes.
them? Yeah.
I can. Consideration of claims to be paid in the amount of $200,399. Manual check in the amount of $115.62. Payroll and liabilities for 3/21/2025 in the amount of $509,114.90 for a total of $709,629.52.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Perfect. I have a motion by Councilwoman Johnson, a second by Councilwoman Pearson Lewis to approve the claims as presented. Is there any discussion? Director Harris?
I have nothing to add, Your Honor.
Perfect. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. Is there anything additional to add? No. Thank you.
I don't have anything.
With the consent of the council, or the consent of the Finance Committee, we'll adjourn the meeting at 6:47 PM.
Pledge of Allegiance, after which Councilmember Bailey has agreed to give us the invocation. If everyone could please rise and remove hats.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dearest Heavenly Father, thank you for the many blessings we enjoy living here in this wonderful city of Riverton and in the state of Wyoming. Please bless us in all that we do here tonight. Help us to be open-minded and aware of all of the needs of the citizens of the city of Riverton. Please bless us that we will all make good decisions. Please pour out your blessings upon all of our police, emergency responders, firemen, and all of those who work every day to protect us. We ask you to please keep us all safe as we go home tonight. And we ask these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Right, Administrative Services Director, Ms. Harris, could you please conduct the roll call?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilmember Eric Carr.
Here.
Councilmember Rebecca Pearson Lewis.
Here.
Councilmember Mike Bailey.
Here.
Councilmember Carla Borders.
Here.
Councilmember Kyle Larson.
Absent.
Councilmember Karen Johnson.
Here.
Mayor Tim Hancock.
I am here. I declare we have a quorum. I'd entertain a motion to excuse Councilman Larson from tonight's meeting as he is ill.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Councilwoman Borders, second by Councilman Bailey. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. I vote aye. Motion passes. I declare we have a quorum. I think I already said that. Well, I could just declare it a lot. Some more declare. All right, I'd entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda with the removal of Pinnacle Day Center from agenda item number 11, optional half% excise tax for economic development.
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Borders with the motion, Councilman Carr with the second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. Motion passes. Reports and comments. I was going to start with Councilman Larson tonight. How about we start with you, Councilwoman Borders?
Why not? Okay, Your Honor. Let's see. I was able to attend the FCAG meeting last week since you were out of town. And it was a great meeting. I learned a lot, and I plan on going to the next one. I haven't had any other meetings, but I did want to mention that the Mercy House is having their fundraiser this Saturday, April 5th. They're really needing to sell some more tickets, so you can go to their Facebook page, Riverton's Mercy House, and they've got a QR code that you can use and purchase your tickets. So I highly encourage you to go. It's a great charity that's coming to town, much needed. So hopefully you can attend. And that's all I've got.
Okay, thank you. All right, Councilman Bailey.
Thank you, Your Honor. The only meeting I've had since we met last was the airport board meeting. And again, we've kept up our trend, and the airport boardings are doing very well. We didn't quite make 2,000 per month. It was 1,857 or something like that, and which is still a 50% increase over March of last year.
Excellent.
So, it was February of last year, sorry. So they're doing very well. This is sort of the slow time of year, and we're still performing very well. So the travel season's gonna be kicking in here in a month or so and doing well. We had some problems with our big new snow blower, but they're working on that with the manufacturer, trying to get some warranty, and thank goodness we didn't have a lot of snow this year, because the snow blower didn't run more than a few minutes and had problems. So, but they're working on that. Sounds like they had a meeting this week and made some headway maybe, so. And and they've got some, I think we've got a hangar lease on our agenda. So, I mean, there's some good activity going on up at the airport. So
Good.
that's all I have. Thanks.
All right. We did run it a couple of times. It wasn't just a few minutes, it was a few minutes at a time. Is that about right, Mr. Eggleston?
Thank you, Your Honor. I think it's less than 10 minutes total.
Right. That sounds like a manufacturer's warranty sort of thing.
It is, we discussed that at great length.
All right, Councilwoman Pearson Lewis.
Thank you, Your Honor. I didn't have any official meetings, but I did make an appearance. I went to the Riverton Economic and Community Development Association meeting on March 26th. And Representative Ottman spoke about the House Bill 69, which is, affects our property taxes and specifically how it's going to affect the incoming, the income that affects our city. So that was interesting. I'm glad I attended that as a councilwoman to see kind of some of the effect that's, it's going to have on our city because it's going to be a big impact. So, and then also the Job Corps did speak at that too, and it's looking really positive, but that was it for me.
Okay. Thank you. I was glad you attended that. I got the email, which I really appreciate, Mr. Krashishnik. You do very well at emailing. And then I didn't attend. I have no excuse other than,
Well, it was spring break, so I was able to.
there we go. That was my excuse. She gave it. Thank you. Councilman Carr.
Thank you, Your Honor. I as well did not attend any official meetings. However, the Planning Commission did meet last Thursday and approved, or 2 Thursdays ago, and approved home occupations and child daycare. I was able to have the privilege to present to the Leadership Fremont County class this year. We had an 8-hour discussion on principle-based leadership up at CWC, and the class went very well. I have a very soft place in my heart for that organization, so I did want to let everyone know that they are now accepting applications for next year's class. If you have not gone through Leadership Fremont County, I would highly, highly recommend it. One, you get to hear me speak, and two, you get introduced to a world of opportunity throughout Fremont County. So had a very pleasant day and a very good discussion with the group. Thank you.
And this year, you also would have had the opportunity to hear Mr. Bailey speak,
Yes,
and I spoke.
yes.
I can't think of anybody else that was as exciting as those three.
Absolutely, yes.
Well, and I would mention, okay, I've lived in Fremont County all of my life, and when I went through the Leadership Fremont County program, I learned a lot of things about Fremont County that I had no idea were going on. And so it's just unbelievable how we all live in our own little world, and you got to push yourself out there a little bit. And so I think that's a really great way to do that, so.
I agree. And it's a really good opportunity, I think, to be able to network with other individuals. I know even just attending and speaking, I've met a lot of people that I probably wouldn't have met otherwise.
Yes.
Just because you get used to your social circles, most of the people I meet are criminals,
On a professional level.
on a professional level. So, I mean, or alleged criminals, I guess I should say, but you know what I mean? So it's a good opportunity to kind of expand the people you know, because I've lived here most of my life, and there's still people in town I haven't met yet. Unbelievable, right? It's only a community of 10,000, you'd think, somewhere in those years. But, yeah, so I think it's great, and they're accepting applications now. It's a really easy website, because it is just Leadership Fremont County, I think, .org.
Org.
LeadershipFremontCounty.org, maybe. I just tried that, it didn't work.
Oh,
We'll try again. Stand by. LeadershipFremontCounty.com.
oh, yes.
So,
Good.
and I think I mentioned this at our last meeting, but Mr. Butterfield, Ms. Harris, and Mr. Michaud are all graduates of Leadership Fremont County. And Chief Hurtado is not, and I brought that up last meeting too. And neither is Wes Romero, who is our captain here today. Not that I'm trying to shame anybody into doing it, but I am. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Councilwoman Johnson, I about said Carr, but
I feel like the slacker up here this week. I have not attended any official meetings. I've literally not been able to. I was going to mention the Mercy House fundraiser that's going on April 5th as well. I wish I was able to attend that, but I am committed to the Christian Motorcycle Association's Bowl-a-thon on the 5th as well. Really wanted to attend the jackalope jump. That looked like a great deal of fun. Unfortunately, middle of the day, I can't break free and do it. But it did allow me some time to do some research on a lot of the goals that we had talked about and see what I can bring to the table there. So that's all I have.
great. Thank you. Mr. Butterfield.
Thank you, Your Honor. A few items to make note of. We'd like to make sure the public are aware that there will be a work session next week, and that will be held at 6 p.m. here at the council chambers. There will be an opportunity to discuss the Youth City Council concept, and then also to receive presentations from those that have applied for the Community Service Contract Grant Program. To that end, the Community Service Grant Program, as far as the advertising period, has closed. Ms. Harris and her team have processed those, and we'll be ready to have those prepared for you from the application standpoint prior to the presentations, which will be next week. I'm really happy to announce that the City of Riverton received one of the Best awards for 2025, as there was community voting, and when it came to the category of Best Park, City Park was voted by the people as the best park in Fremont County. And I think that's a testament to the staffers that work to make the park enjoyable for families, and also to our community for using that park. And I thought that was a nice thing to receive and recognize at this time. I appreciate the Councilwoman's remarks on our ECDA meeting, and would like to note that our legislators, Representative Ottman and Representative Guggenmoss, have agreed to come and present to the City Council at the next business meeting, so that would be April 15th, and provide an update to you as council and also the community on the work that they did this last legislative session. As I've mentioned, it was a very busy session, and I appreciate the work of our legislators as they considered over 550 bills. That's pretty incredible. So we will have an opportunity to hear from our local representatives at that time, and I appreciate that they're willing to do that. I think it's also important to note that as the session has just recently ended, there's now opportunity to pay attention to the interim period, and the Management Council for the legislature will be considering topics and assignments at its April 8th meeting. At that time, we'll have an understanding of how committee assignments work for the legislature, and maybe more particularly the topics that the committees will take up in this interim period before the next legislative session. And there are several topics that we will be paying attention to as a municipality. I also know that there were opportunities to celebrate in the community this week. One was ribbon cutting for Java Java. I bring it up because they were recipients of the optional 0.5% tax, and it's nice to see that they've been able to move forward with their proposal and have that ribbon cutting this week. And with that, Your Honor, I'll stand for any questions, but that kind of rounds out the report that I have tonight.
And you don't have a picture to share with everybody of you in your chicken suit jumping for the jackalope jump?
Your Honor, I have plenty of photos of that. And
I do too. I just wanted to make sure you knew that.
I'd be willing to put them up on the screen because I think I had the cutest jump partner. My daughter agreed to wear a cow suit and jump in the cold water with me, so it was pretty fun.
So we're the
that's cute.
Cluck Moo Moo team, is that right? Yeah.
The Cluck Cluck Moo Moo team.
You.
Well, thank you, Mr. Butterfield, and thank you for participating in that. I know, I think it was the year before last, you had just kind of come by when I was getting ready to jump, or I think I had just jumped. Then last year, now, did you end up jumping last year? Or was this the first year you've ended up jumping? So it's pretty fun. It is cold water, but I was really glad. We got there at about 10 o'clock, and it was cold. And then it warmed up by 11. So the water was cold, but the atmosphere was not too bad. So it's good. So I had the opportunity to participate in the jackalope jump for the second time in a year. Lewis and I held hands and jumped in together. First year I did it, my wife did that with me. She's since given up on me. She thinks I'm crazy. That's okay, I still have Lewis. Other than that, I wished I could have attended the Java grand opening. Did we have anybody from the city that was able to go to that? Good, great. I was going to try to reach out to somebody to make sure we had that happen. Didn't have the opportunity to go to FCAG, but certainly appreciate Councilwoman Borders being able to be there for that. I think we've got a really good group there, and was happy to be able to have that opportunity. The only excuse I have for why I didn't attend is I had work. Just maybe a pretty good excuse.
I think that's a good idea.
Not as good as the excuse of spring break for missing RECDA, but it's a pretty good one nonetheless. I guess I would say take advantage of the fact that I have a microphone to use to say that I had the opportunity to work for Patrick LeBrun for many years. Just came back to work for him, and then he left. But really appreciate, I think, the positive impact he's had on Fremont County, and we'll miss him in his next adventure over in Casper. So I guess for people that are curious about that process, the way it works is the party that elected the county attorney will come up with 3 applicants from that party. So it'd have to be a Republican. And so they'd have to come up with 3 applicants from that party. Those applicants then go to the county commissioners, and the county commissioners will select the person who will serve out the remainder of his term. And then once that term ends, which will be, let's see, next November is when the election is for it, so it wouldn't be next January, but the January after. That's when the newly elected county attorney, whether it's the same one or someone different or whatever, would be taking office. So anybody curious about that process, that's it. I did have a proclamation I wanted to share. Every year, I get something from regarding Child Abuse Prevention Month. And so they had sent me a proclamation this year, and I wanted to share that and sign that today. April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas prevention is possible with the right policies and investments, families and children can thrive and avoid contact with child welfare and other costly systems, whereas the early experiences of a child impact them throughout life, both positively and negatively, whereas every family and child is filled with tremendous promise, and we all have a collective responsibility to prevent adverse childhood experiences, foster the potential of every child, and promote positive childhood experiences. And whereas positive childhood experiences, such as loving caregivers and safe, stable, and nurturing relationships, play a vital role in helping children thrive by mitigating trauma and the negative impact of adverse childhood experiences. And whereas families who receive the support they need before a crisis occurs are better equipped to provide safe, healthy, and nurturing environments, leading to children who are safer, healthier, and more hopeful about their futures. And whereas childhood trauma, including abuse and neglect, can have long-term psychological, emotional, and physical effects throughout an individual's lifetime and impact future generations. And whereas primary prevention of child abuse and neglect can reduce the lifetime economic burden associated with child maltreatment, and whereas strengthening families through access to concrete economic, social, and community-based supports reduce the likelihood of abuse and neglect and ensures children have the foundation for lifelong well-being. And whereas effective child abuse prevention activities succeed because of the partnerships created between child welfare professionals, education, health, community, and faith-based organizations, businesses, law enforcement agencies, and families. And whereas communities must make every effort to promote programs and activities that create strong and thriving children and families. And whereas we acknowledge that we must work together as a community to increase awareness about child abuse and contribute to promoting the social and emotional well-being of children and families in a safe, stable, and nurturing environment. And whereas investments in prevention initiatives such as home visiting programs, family strengthening policies, economic supports, and community-based child abuse prevention efforts are essential to building safer, healthier communities for children and families, and whereas prevention remains the best defense for our children and families. Now therefore I, Tim Hancock, Mayor of the City of Riverton, do hereby proclaim April 2025 as Child Abuse Prevention Month in Riverton, Wyoming, and urge all citizens to recognize this month by dedicating ourselves to the task of improving the quality of life for all children and families. Together, we can create a state where every child can grow up happy, healthy, and safe with hope for their future. So I have 6 kids. For anybody that knows me, that's a lot. Luckily, I have a wonderful wife who takes on the burden of most of the child care in our home. But I will say, one of the things that I've learned in my time as a prosecutor, I've had people that were children in homes where the father or the mother was being abused that I have now seen as defendants. And it's sad. The environment that children grow up in makes a huge difference. And I really appreciate the members of our community that recognize that and make every effort they can to have that good environment for children, whether it's in your own home or having a safe place that children can go to. So I just would encourage people to recognize that. I would say one of the things that they do is they encourage wearing blue on Fridays. So if you're so inclined, would suggest you wear blue on Fridays in recognition of Child Abuse Prevention Month. But I would certainly hope that we can do more to recognize the impact that the treatment of children at a young age has throughout their lives and try to encourage positive influences, mentors, parents, everything for the children in our community. All right, that was a long proclamation and a lot of stuff, but we'll keep moving on. Communication from the floor, citizens' comments. Anyone in the audience wishing to address the council regarding an item that is scheduled for a public hearing will be given an opportunity to speak during that public hearing. If you want to address the council on an item that is not set for a public hearing, when it comes up in the agenda, just try to get my attention, raise your hand, and we'll usually recognize you and give you an opportunity to speak. If it's something that you want to address on another item that's not even on the agenda, that's fine too. This is the time. So I would ask you, if you wish to address the council, to come up to the microphone, identify yourself by name. If you are with a group, I would ask you to identify the group that you are with, whether it's a club or a service organization or anything like that. I'd ask you to address all questions and comments to the chair. That's just parliamentary procedure. Refrain from the use of individual names or indecent, obscene language, fighting words, or other language which is disruptive to the orderly discussion at the meeting. If you come up when an agenda item is called, I'd ask you to keep your discussions on topic. So not to go off topic into something else, but to stay on topic with what the agenda item is. Anyway, so if anyone wants to speak, now's the time. I'd ask you just to come up to the podium and tell us your name.
Hi, I'm, whoa. I'm,
Interesting name.
whoa. Hi, I'm Carol Harper with Frontier Ambulance. I have something to hand out for you guys, but I'll do that later. We are holding a human trafficking presentation at the Riverton Ambulance Station this Thursday, April 3rd at 6 p.m. As you may or may not know, human trafficking is a modern-day slavery. And millions, not hundreds, not thousands, millions of men, women, and children fall victim to trusting the wrong people and becoming a part of this horrific ring of forced labor, sexual exploitation, and abuse. So awareness is power. So this presentation is to educate the public on human trafficking and what it is, and most especially what we can do as first responders and the communities of Fremont County for an effective response on this critical issue. And this is just one of what we hope will be a series of presentations and activities that a group of us at the Frontier Ambulance will be offering. Besides tribal victim services, we're also going to be partnering with other agencies and organizations. We plan on doing a victim trauma series and hope that we can also partner with RPD and victim services to address and educate the public on some of the other critical issues that the communities of Fremont County face. So anyway, the same presentation will be given in Lander at the Lander Station next Thursday at the same time, 6 o'clock. And so I just encourage you to attend, and thank you. There's a flyer in the foyer with a QR code, so if you're interested, you just, as you go out, you can do the QR code.
I guess I forgot to note that I will time you, because we try to keep the comments to 5 minutes for individuals and 10 minutes for groups.
Who's putting,
Carol didn't even come close.
just the ambulance service?
I didn't say that as a reflection of anything of her. If you hear my phone go off,
Thank you.
your time is up. I do, and I have it by email, too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harper. Anyone else?
I leave trails of myself behind everywhere.
She wants people to remember her.
I'm learning. Give it to the head and let it pass around. I'm Cindy Olson-Roden with Riverton Chamber and Visitor Center. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just a couple of updates. Thank you so much for those that attended the ribbon cutting today at Java Java. That was very nice. I did not find out until Sunday afternoon that they were opening, so we put together something really quick, and it turned out very well, and we did have good representation, so that was nice. One of the flyers that's going around is we are having another ribbon cutting this Thursday, again at 11 a.m. at Subway up on West Main. They are under new ownership and remodel, so we'll be doing that as well. I'll send out a reminder to have everyone attend. And then Friday is our regular monthly First Friday Lunch and Learn. Wind River Development Fund will be presenting. So I've seen their presentation. It's a good one. I would recommend anyone and everyone to come to that, and we'll feed you some good lunch. And then our monthly after hours is April 24th. That's going to be at the Fremont Center, and we've got several businesses that are mobile businesses that we're going to be having doing that, so that should be a good one. And then the second flyer that went around is, I kind of forewarned you on this, we're inviting anyone, especially the council, to come down to the Chamber and Visitor Center and take a look at it if you have not been there. We please want you to see what we do there, what visitors see, and how that looks. And so in the next couple weeks, I would hope you could come down. I'm there from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, so if you want to stop in before you go to work or whatever, either way, someone's there the whole time. So that's all I've got, unless you've got a question for me.
And I guess just so folks know, even if the front door is closed, the entrance that's shared with the Fremont Local Market and Rocky Mountain Borough, you have the side entrance that.
Yep, on 6th Street. Yep, right across from overhead doors. Yep.
That's
We have a side
your office.
entrance. Yep, and we usually have a little banner flag out there and sometimes a big one, so you can't miss it. And now we have a big decal on the door, so you can't, our logo, so you cannot miss it.
Okay,
So we'd love anyone to come down, anyone and everyone, so you can see what we've got set up there.
thank you very much.
Thanks.
Anyone else? I was wondering if you were going to get up.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, City Council. I'm Luke Walker. As you've just heard, I'm with Subway, and we're having our grand opening this Thursday. I believe the ribbon cutting is set for 11. And we would like to cordially invite everybody to come down and join us for that event. We're running a deal all day, free cookie with every purchase, so.
Right.
And that's all I've got. And I'd like to thank you guys for the opportunity to speak here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. So if I make multiple purchases during one visit, just curious, like if I buy a soda, and in a separate purchase I buy a sandwich, how does that, do I get 2 cookies?
While supplies last, and and that long, Mr. Mayor.
That's probably the right answer. Thank you, Mr. Walker.
Thank you.
Yes.
I do have to run. I'm actually supposed to head up and close tonight, so.
Yeah, I saw Georgia working tonight too, so hard at work.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Honor, members of the council, Kevin Kershiznik with ID Inc. Couple other announcements for you to take note of. Like Cindy mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about the half cent today. That's done, right? It expired yesterday. And so there's some opportunities for entrepreneurs to actually still receive services for our community. First thing will be on Friday. You'll be able to talk to Wind River Development Fund, and they have some loans, low-interest loans that are beneficial. Next week, Wednesday, the 9th, at 6 p.m. at the college, is the Fremont County Startup Challenge. The 5 finalists will be presenting their new business ideas, and then the winners will be selected and they'll be awarded some funds to assist them going forward. Then on Thursday, Friday next week at the college is the Innovation and Entrepreneur Conference. And if you're not signed up for that, I recommend you look into it. It's a great conference. It's going to be here, like I said, at Central Wyoming. People across the state are coming in. Great opportunity to look at what's going on in the state, resources available, et cetera. And then the week after, so I guess it's going to be the 14th through the 17th, is the funding conference. It's the Wyoming State Funding. So that's through the governor's office, and they're going to talk about federal, state grants, how you can apply for those, for your business, for your organization, et cetera. So these are great opportunities, statewide resources that are coming to our city in the next 2 weeks, and encourage everybody to take advantage of those.
Can you just throw those out again, just so everybody knows?
Yeah.
One more time.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Krishishnik.
Yes, by all means. So Friday is the Lunch and Learn up at the college, right? So Wind River Development Fund. Next Wednesday, Fremont County Startup Challenge for the entrepreneurs, 6 p.m. at Central Wyoming College. Then Thursday, Friday next week is going to be the Innovation and Entrepreneur Conference at Central Wyoming College.
Featuring Chancey Williams.
Yeah, by all means, there's a concert. That's right, Thursday
Just
night.
saying.
That's correct, entertainment and everything. And then the following week, Monday through Thursday, is the Funding Summit. And that's going to be up at Central Wyoming College again.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Hope to see you all there.
We also have in April coming up, additionally, the grant,
I think that's what it is, grant writing.
the grant writing seminar as well. Just, and that, and the, in particular, well, anyway, yeah, I just can't think of the dates. Well, we'll bring it up next meeting.
I believe it's the 14th through the 17th.
Is that what it is? I know I'm signed up for it, so I'm hoping I actually attend.
At the college, yeah. And that's for state and federal grants.
Yep.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on. Unless, okay, good. I just saw these kids walking by, and if they wanted to come up and speak, that's fine, but. All right, Administrative Services Director, could you please read the consent agenda items by title only?
Excuse me. Yes, Your Honor. Approval of the minutes, March 18th, 2025, regular council meeting. Approval of the minutes, April 1st, 2025, Finance Committee meeting. Approval of the Finance Committee recommendations, April 1st, 2025.
Thank you. And items requiring further discussion.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Finance Committee met at 6:45 this evening and recommend payment of claims in the amount of $200,399, one manual check in the amount of $115.62, payroll and liabilities for March 21st, 2025 in the amount of $509,114.90 for a total of $709,629.52.
Excellent. I'd entertain a motion for passage, to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Bailey with the motion, Councilwoman Borders with the second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 I vote aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. All right. Consideration of ordinance 25004, third and final reading, alley vacation and replat. Original Town of Riverton, Block 2, replat number 1. Mr. Butterfield.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Perfect timing, Father.
I was gonna go to the bathroom, hopefully I can hold it.
Yeah.
Let's hope.
We'll try to make it as quick as we can.
Okay.
Mr. Butterfield.
Thank you, Your Honor. We're very glad to have so many people in the audience tonight. While we've given background on this on 2 other readings, I'll be relatively brief, but I do want to outline that the vacation of public land, specifically rights-of-way, roads, and alleys, is governed by state statute, and that's State Statute 154305, and it states the governing body has exclusive power and by ordinance may vacate any highway, street, lane, or alley, or portion thereof. No vacation may be ordered except upon petition by a majority of the owners owning a majority of the property abutting on the portion proposed to be vacated and extending 300 feet in either direction from the portion proposed to be vacated. The city or town may demand and receive the value of the land vacated as consideration for the vacation. I'm happy to report that the petitioners have met the requirements of the statute as far as including enough landowners. And as part of the replat, there are necessary easements in place to protect the existing utilities, and then also access for the private property owner who's located on the southwest corner of this block. All other parcels are currently owned by St. Margaret's Church. In a change from the second reading approval to third reading, there is additional language in the ordinance that I'd like to make note of. And what this does is it brings forward the opportunity for the council to consider whether it would like to be compensated for the alley to be vacated. And then also it brings in language related to the replat that is proposed. And if you look at the proposed ordinance in your packet, those additions are in light blue. Tonight, through third reading on this ordinance, you have opportunity to vacate the 20-foot alley by ordinance as allowed by statute. You also have opportunity to approve the replat, which basically combines several of the lots of the existing plat. And then also to consider the valuation. St. Margaret's Church was able to work with a local real estate broker to establish an opinion of price for the alley. That opinion of price is included in your packet, and that is, again, included in the ordinance. It states the governing body demands $4,500 for the value of land to be vacated, and that is based on the opinion of price in your packet. However, you as a council can choose to amend the ordinance to remove the compensation portion or to amend the amount of the compensation as you see fit, because that is within your authority. Your Honor, with that, I'll stand for any questions and appreciate this opportunity to bring this item forward.
Thank you, sir. All right. Administrative Services Director, if you could please read ordinance 25004 by title only.
Yes, Your Honor. Proposed ordinance number 25-004, an ordinance vacating a 20-foot alley between lots 1 through 6 and lots 7 through 12, Block 2, original Town of Riverton, to the City of Riverton, Wyoming, demanding value of the land vacated and approving the original Town of Riverton, Block 2, replat number 1.
I'd entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 25004 on third and final reading.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Bailey, second by Councilman Carr. Discussion, amendments?
Your Honor, I would move that we amend it to include the price to be $4,000.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Motion by Councilman Bailey, second by Councilwoman Pearson Lewis. Any other discussion on that item? Good way to do it, so we can just discuss that by itself.
Right.
Makes sense. I like it. Did you want to discuss the purchase price?
If I may.
Please, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, Your Honor, councilmen and women. I'm Megan Mossbrucker. I am the principal at St. Margaret's School. I'm also a parishioner at the church and a parent of 3 kids in this community. So I understand that the opinion of price is included in your packets for this evening. I want to first reiterate that the goal of the alleyway vacation and replat is really about student safety, and I want to thank every one of you for your support and your consideration at the previous 2 meetings. Yeah, you just understand and support the responsibility of student safety. Regarding that opinion of price, obviously we would be very grateful if the consideration for compensation was removed. At the first reading, however, based on our own preliminary research and consideration of factors like the marketability of this land, St. Margaret's Catholic Church and School at that point were prepared to pay $2,500 for the purchase of the alleyway. The value of the alley is hard to determine, I believe, because the value to anyone else is almost non-existent due to the limitations. For example, it can't be developed or utilized in any meaningful way and holds little to no appeal to others. As you know, we also take responsibility for the ongoing maintenance and upkeep of the alleyway, and we remain committed to maintaining suitable utility easements and accommodating the city in every way that we can and should. The city plays a vital role in ensuring the safety of the children, in our community. We share this commitment to public safety, especially in regards to children, because we know that children deserve a safe learning environment where they can freely play and learn while they're at school. Again, at the end of the day, we just profoundly appreciate this partnership with you as we work together to safeguard the well-being of children during school hours. So I want to express my gratitude. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mossbrucker. Any questions or? Just so you
Yeah,
don't have to
I do.
sit back down and get back up. Go ahead, Councilwoman Pearson Lewis.
Where'd your 2,500 number come from?
Yeah, so Your Honor, Councilwoman Lewis, we are not experts, so I'll be very transparent about that. That's obvious. We just kind of looked at values of other properties. There's not really comparables for this specific piece of property, and then considered, like I said, the limitations of this land because, you know, it poses no real appeal or utility for anyone other than us.
Okay,
So that's where that number came from.
thank you.
And I noticed that the comparables that he used were all average price of $289 per square foot, but then I appreciated that he noted in this sort of circumstance, he would think probably more in the neighborhood of 75 cents a square foot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where he gave 75 cents a square foot estimated value of $4,500. So I guess if you were to say, you know, where would the 2,500 come from, I guess you'd get that by 6,000 square foot divided by 2,500, and that's what you estimated per square foot, which I'm not very good at math right now. Ready?
Like,
Any St. Margaret students?
you like, 50 cents or
6,000 divided by 2,500.
40 cents or,
0.24. No, that's not right.
no, be
I
like
did my math wrong. Stand by.
No, you're all right. And we, again, Your Honor, I mean, one thing we really considered was what possible utility would anyone have for a property like this? Again, I just want to reiterate that at the end of the day, we share the commitment to public safety that you all have supported, and we're just very grateful for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Mossbrucker.
Your Honor.
Councilman Bailey?
And again, the reason that I suggested the $4,000 is that was the low end of what he had estimated. And if it was up to me, I would give it to you for free. But I think as the city, we have to consider this a precedent that we're setting, and if somebody else came to us, we wouldn't want to have the precedent set that we give it away for less than what fair market value is. And so I think we're sort of restricted to that valuation. I think there's probably people in the audience that will help you get to that number, so.
I absolutely, Your Honor, can I speak?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I absolutely second Mike. I think, yeah, I'd give it to you free too. I mean, like if it were us individually, I think absolutely. But the thing, I mean, the truth of it is if we have a number, if it's in there and we're given this, we have to go with it. But we're going with the lower, you know, the low. I mean, in fact, he says estimated value 4,500 and we're going with 4,000. We're going with less. And, but we have to because I think that we're actually locked into that in a sense because if anybody were to come before us and be like, hey, we want this too, we just can't arbitrarily, you know, go with whatever they say. And honestly, I think that's just truth, really. But honestly, I'd be like, yeah, you know, I mean, I'm like, church, Jesus, yes. You know, like, wow. But kids, you know, I love kids, you know, safety, but I just think it's got to be that way.
Your Honor, I'm going to offer.
Councilwoman Borders? I almost called you Bailey. Go ahead.
You're on one tonight.
Should we all switch sides?
You're on, I don't
Let's
know.
move around, see if he remembers who we are.
Carr
I
and
just,
Bailey?
I want to take a bit of a different take on this.
All right,
so
Carla, go.
I'd like to give it to St. Margaret's too. The thing is, they're not wanting to purchase this alley. They want to close off access during school hours. So how much does the city need to profit off of that? When you just want to reduce the cost or the access for the kids. So I'm thinking, why charge it all?
You could probably sit down. If I need to ask you a question, we'll have you get up.
That's perfect. Thank you,
You're probably on
Your
your
Honor.
feet enough
Yes.
all day.
Thank you.
So I guess one of the things that I've been thinking about as an organization in the community, and one of the things that was brought up during the Planning Commission meeting was concern over, you know, is this going to create issues with having it go to a faith-based organization and the separation of church and state? I understand expressing that concern. That being said, I will say that St. Margaret's does a lot to benefit the community in a lot of ways that aren't anything to do with faith-based.
Yeah.
I know, for example, as we've been talking about the Mercy House, the upcoming fundraiser, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's going to be, well, I know it's going to be at St. Margaret's Gym, but if I'm not mistaken, I think they got that either at a reduced or zero from St. Margaret's, one or the other. Father Louis?
We waived the rental fee and just asked for the cleaning fee.
So, and that's I mean, in my experience, there's a lot of fundraisers that go on there. There's a lot of good, I think, that comes out of St. Margaret's as an organization in terms of providing assistance to nonprofits and groups within the community. I think I'd echo what Councilman Bailey and Councilwoman Pearson Lewis have said. I think as far as, you know, we're the recipients of not having to pay, I think St. Margaret's would definitely be there. But I also echo what Councilman Bailey said, which is the concern about precedence. Whatever we do here is going to be looked at by other individuals that have an alley that may want to have it vacated for one reason or the other. And St. Margaret's may not be the owner of that parcel going forward into perpetuity. And that's what we always have to think of whenever we're making changes, is that going into the future, it may be that St. Margaret's would sell that property, build a new, larger church, bigger facility elsewhere, who knows? And that might be even after all of our lifetimes who are here. So thinking about that going forward and that precedence, having a price to me makes sense. I don't think we're necessarily locked into 4,000. I mean, I think having it be something that's fair that we could see doing with another organization.
Okay.
I do agree that 4,000 is a safer one in terms of we have an obligation to not act arbitrarily, and you use the exact right word. That's the word. We cannot act arbitrarily and capriciously as government. So we have to make sure that what we do is based on something that's objective, that you can look at and you could put a price on. Now, fair market value is an interesting idea.
Yeah.
Because appraisers, the only thing they can do is look at like properties.
And there's not much
There's not.
like, yeah.
I mean, he can look at it and say, this is the average price for
Yeah.
just a lot.
Yeah.
But this isn't a lot, right? And that's why he's cut it down in a bit of, frankly, maybe even an arbitrary way to a lower amount, right? He's saying it's lowered in value by about a quarter, I guess, if you were to look at it that way. So I think a price is appropriate. I guess what I would say is, I think we could do less than 4,000 safely. But I
you're-
do think,
Yeah, that's it.
Sorry.
Councilwoman
Good.
Johnson?
I'll just weigh in and say a couple things. I would suggest 3,000 would be fair. I think because it's hard to evaluate that property, I appreciate the work Mr. Piplica did trying to evaluate with what he did. But whereas they were prepared to pay 2,500, the low end is 4,000 for us, kind of a common ground there is 3,000. I think we can all agree that there is no price that's too great to protect our kids. And I commend you guys for doing what was necessary in order to do that. And I also think that you guys provide significant opportunity to the community to be able to use your facilities as well. And I think that that should come with a price also. And so I would suggest 3,000.
All right. Good discussion. The vote is for 4,000 right now. So do we have any more Did you want to speak, sir? Come on up. I think I recognize you from the Planning Commission meeting. Was that you?
Not recently. My name is Chance Ilzeski. I'm a local property owner, resident of Riverton. I'm also a small business owner, and I'm married to a small business owner. We possess a home occupancy permit. And one thing that I saw omitted from all of your comments was not just the precedent of your actions here, but as Mr. Piplica was looking for comparable properties, he was looking at valuations per square foot significantly higher than we're discussing tonight. And whatever number you settle on tonight will be a valuation that will be used in the future to further drive down those prices. So wanted that consideration made tonight.
For good or ill, right? Maybe for the good of purchasers and the bad of people who are trying to sell it, right?
Yes, I own property with alley access. I share that alley access with commercial properties. And one way or the other, this could set a precedent that could greatly affect one of us very positively and one of us very negatively. So
I appreciate the thought, and I think that's in line with what Councilman Bailey said, so thank you. How do you spell your last name?
WILCZEWSKI.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, one thing to note also is that even though this property will be sold, hypothetically, the easements that are in place now for all the utilities, all of that kind of stuff, all stay in place. So even the access for the other owner that is not the church is protected in that too. So again, that further enforces the value being lower because it's never going to be able to be used for anything other than just space. So,
Right. And I mean, the easements there for utilities and everything really reduce that value
right.
because
Yeah. So it's,
most of the
if
alley
they decided
is-
to add on to the school, they couldn't put it in the alley.
Right.
They would have to leave the alley still open, so.
Thank you. Good thought.
Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Just a couple comments. The current landowner that owns the majority of the property on that city block, the probability of them leaving is low, but not zero. And so when we talk about, future value and setting precedent, we have a document in front of us that provides a price that seems fair. It's by a knowledgeable, respected realtor here in town. And if we lower that, or if we go outside those bounds, which we have the latitude to do, we're certainly entitled to that. But my question would be, what future councils, what does that do to their decision-making process as well? When they're presented with defensible data and then arbitrarily lower that, or which is, again, within the latitude of our responsibilities, I would just be concerned about that. So I'm very fine with the 4,000 because it's at the low end and it's at our discretion. I would hesitate to venture outside of that.
And I think it's a good point that anytime we make decisions like this, it needs to be separated from the idea of who would be getting it necessarily and the purposes. Because regardless, which, by the way, like I said, St. Margaret's, I think, is a great school, great organization, does a lot for the community. But to a certain extent, we've got to be willing to separate all of that out and just say, on paper, if you're going to be vacating an alley, what is that worth to the community? This is going to be somewhere where from now on, not that I'm saying it's a big burden, but people wanting to walk down the alleys there are going to have to now take a right or a left and go over to one of the sidewalks, which in my opinion is fine. I don't mind doing that at all. I'd rather walk on a sidewalk.
Not uncommon.
Yeah.
Well, you're on, oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, I think Mr. Warpness was wanting to speak. And
Yep.
Mayor Hancock and Council, Ron Warpness. Historically, we've had, I remember Mayor Bill Eichler vacated an alley that belonged to the city and behind the, when they moved the shop building and everything. And so there was an alley in there. And historically, what I've always seen and understood that that land for the alley was taken from the neighboring properties, okay? And so when you vacate the property, right down the middle of it and just give each side the properties that they would normally have. And then let it be dealt with the ownership of those properties, rather than getting into, unless you wanted to maintain the alley, on into the future, which wouldn't be, so. Anyway, that was just a thought that, as listening to the discussion, that I've never heard that they were putting a price on a vacated alley, that the vacate just goes to the neighboring properties that are right along there, and then it's their private property, and they do with it as they would under a normal circumstance. So anyway, just
which actually, I think, to a certain extent, is a benefit to the city because then we're not having to maintain it.
That's right.
It's reducing the property we have to maintain.
Your Honor, just as a point of comment, referring back to the statute, which I read, it does give you the authority to seek that compensation. If there wasn't a replat involved, Mr. Warpness is correct, the alley that would be vacated would be split and the adjoining property owners would take right. But because there's a replat involved that's creating different lot sizes, it is a little different in the sense that it's not just reverting to the adjoining property owners. but it is outlined in statute that should the alley vacation be considered, you as a governing body have the ability to decide whether you want compensation or whether you don't.
Well, I guess that's a good question that I hadn't quite thought about until Mayor Warpness sat up, which is the city is kind of getting something out of the deal in terms of we're able to still go pick up trash and everything and have utility easement there, but not have to maintain it. Oh, actually, just a minute, Father Louis. I want to make sure,
Fine.
Councilwoman Pearson Lewis has been wanting to speak, and I want to give her a
I always
chance.
want to speak, it's fine. Your Honor, what's the precedence here, though?
Zero. I don't think we've had something exactly like this previously, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Butterfield.
So this would be setting the precedence.
Well, Your Honor, to potentially answer that question, there have been alley vacations in the past. I don't have those before me to see how the individual councils through the years handled that. Maybe to answer the question of precedence, you are setting a precedence, whereas as there are currently no comps for the valuation of an alley, you are de facto creating a comp or a comparable for someone to use for the valuation of an alley moving forward. So there is a precedent in that regard.
And then, okay, so my second comment would be, if we do decide to do this, I think that two things: we have to be as objective as possible, as you stated, and two, we can't disregard or disrespect a member of the community and their advice, their expert advice that we received. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I understand that.
So, thank you, Your Honor, for recognizing me to speak. I would.
Could you tell everybody your name?
Oh, yeah. Father Louis Shea, pastor of St. Margaret's. Mr. Butterfield, there is precedent, but you didn't look it up. So I'm not sure that the next time this comes up, that the people would look this precedent up. That would be a point I would make. Another point that I would make is that as an alley, it's not really in very good shape. It's very potted up. Of course, we have parents driving down it, and we have people driving on the weekend, but I would imagine that the trash trucks cause most of the damage.
Oh, how could you say that?
I mean, I think that's just the physics of the deal. So I think that maybe that could be taken into consideration. And if you want what we consider the fair market, maybe you'd fix it for us before we were done. Sometimes somebody will come to me and say they want to have their child baptized. I say, okay, well, how much does it cost? And I said, well, I'm in the business of taking donations. I don't charge for things like that. So if any of you want to donate to help us pay for it, we'd be more than happy to accept.
I like it.
And we are a 501c3, so you would get your tax credit for that as well.
Your Honor,
Yes.
can I just add a few more things? I think the precedence that's being set is that the city of Riverton would seek compensation for a replat or the property that's being taken back, so to speak. So that's the precedence that I see as being set. And the suggested amount is an opinion. It's not an official appraisal. And so I think that there might be a little bit of wiggle room in there. It's not that I don't, or that I discredit the opinion that was given, but the fact of the matter is, it is just that, it's an opinion and not an actual appraisal. So I think that we might have a little bit of wiggle room. But I also think that in the best interest of the city, we do have to, like Mayor Hancock stated, we do have to be able to separate the goodness that you guys do along with what's best for the city. And I think compensation is fair for that.
All right. Well, I think
Call for the question.
we've had a lot of discussion. So all in favor of the amendment to the presented ordinance, which would call for $4,000 to be remitted to the city for the property discussed. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Okay, I vote nay. So that means we're back at 4,500. Do we have any other motions?
Your Honor, I'd make a motion to make it 3,000.
I'll
Okay.
second that.
Just to be clear for our wonderful Deputy City Clerk and Administrative Services Director to have the amount that would be requested for the property to be 3,000, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, we have a motion for 3,000 by Councilwoman Johnson and a second by Councilwoman Borders. We've done a lot of discussion on this, so we're ready to just vote on it?
Yeah.
All right, all those in favor of 3,000 as requested for the property itself, say aye.
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 I vote aye. Those opposed say nay.
Nay.
All right, thank you. Okay, now back to the main motion. Any other discussion? Are we ready for a roll call vote? I think we've kind of gotten most of our discussion out of the way. All right, Administrative Services Director, could you please conduct a roll call vote?
Yes, Councilmember Eric Carr,
Nay.
Councilmember Rebecca Pearson Lewis,
Yeah. Yeah.
Councilmember Mike Bailey,
Aye.
Councilmember Carla Borders,
Aye.
Councilmember Karen Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Tim Hancock.
I vote aye. Councilwoman Pearson Lewis, I would just note that sometimes Councilwoman Borders says yay.
Yeah, that's what I did too. Yay! We're done with this. How many weeks has it been?
The motion passed.
For pointing that out.
Thank you, everybody, for attending and discussing that. Pick on you a little.
Oh, you.
Cheers, Carla.
Yes. We're about an hour in. We've got a lot of other stuff going on. Probably be a good time to take a brief recess.
Let's do it.
Let's do
So
that.
we'll take a recess until 8. Let's go until 8:20.
Did the mayor?
Recipient presentation from CO 307 Lawn Pros. And then I think we also have information regarding some of the other recipients, not provided by the recipients here in person, but via letter. So, Ms. Harris, if you could give us your report.
Yes, Your Honor. Tonight, I'm pleased to present an update on the recipients of the Evolve, Diversify, and Grow Our Economy funds, which were approved by voters in Fremont County to support economic growth and job creation. Economic development for this purpose includes projects that create or retain jobs or bring new revenue into our community. Each recipient of EDGE funds entered into an agreement for use of funds, requiring them to report on the status of their project and share how the funding has impacted their organization and the local community. One such recipient, Media Adventure Queen, was awarded $3,464. Due to scheduling conflicts, they were unable to attend, but provided a written report, which has been shared with you ahead of tonight's meeting. Additionally, I received an update from Brown Sugar Coffee Roastery, which also was provided to you before the meeting. And if you'll remember, she did come in and present her report. So she's also provided a second follow-up for you. These reports are available to the public, and I'm happy to provide those upon request. But we are fortunate to have Drew Smith here tonight of 307 Lawn Pros, LLC. He will share firsthand how EDGE funding has supported his business and contributed to the local economy.
Mr. Smith, if you could come on up and.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys need one?
Oh, you better keep that one for yourself.
You'll take it. Well, there's some familiar faces up here tonight, but for those who do not know me, my name is Drew Smith, owner of 307 Lawn Pros, and I was recipient of the half-cent tax. And I used it to purchase some curbing equipment and expand my lawn care landscape business. In the packets is some pictures of work that we have completed. Actually, Cindy Olson was one of my first clients for the curbing. The trailer is actually currently at Top Notch Auto Spa getting a full wrap on it so people know what it is and get some advertising out there for it. So.
Is this, I guess, is this page 3? Is that what the equipment that you use looks like? The orange there, is that?
Yeah, so that's the trailer. The black part is the enclosed part where we keep all the equipment. And then the orange basket-looking deal is where you put all the sand. Then on the back, it's got a mixer, so it's a full self-contained unit. We mix all our cement right there, haul it to the machine, and it extrudes it out. And we finish the curb. We can stamp it, color it, seal it, all kinds of different stuff.
So get the cement out first, and then any of the coloring or stamping or whatever would come afterwards, is that correct?
Yeah, so the coloring you mix in while you're mixing the concrete, and then you can throw additional, like, dry coloring on top of that to get different hues.
It looks good.
Yeah, thank you.
Is this Cindy's place here at the?
So the pictures with the black rock, I don't have a packet with me.
That's okay.
Thank you. So page number 4, that was Cindy's new house construction. And then Dean Peranto, former council member, some of his project is on page 5, the left picture with the greenhouse. We did some sod and sprinkler system for him, and it turned out pretty nice.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Can you provide a list of all of the services that you provide?
Yeah, so we do any mowing services, little bit of tree trimming, but we mainly focus on sprinkler system installs, repairs, landscape curbing. We do some flat work depending on how big. We do a lot of fencing.
So turf management and lawn care?
Yeah, all
perfect.
the stuff.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We just had somebody over at our 2 houses to fix washing machines like the same day.
Literally the same.
It was funny. And I was just talking with Drew right before about the possibility of coming in and doing some work on our lawn. We should arrange that, same as we did last time.
That's perfect.
I like that.
Save you some time. Councilwoman Johnson.
With the funds that were provided to you and the purchase that you made with that, were there any new job creations with that?
There was, yep, I hired
many?
2 additional employees, full-time employees. I had one quit on me right before wintertime due to some family issues. But I am looking to, actually, I am hiring 2 more employees to get me through the summer, and hopefully keeping on one of them at least.
Great, thank you.
And I currently have 1 full-time employee.
And this is something that was brought in by the curbing, particularly because of the additional work created by the curbing equipment.
Correct.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so to date, we've got, we trained and then we did our own little training session with it. Kind of got the equipment down, the mixture down. That's kind of tricky. But after that, we've laid roughly 524 linear feet. And then this year, I've already got 400 linear feet scheduled. And then guesstimating to do about another 2,000 to 3,000 after that. So.
Wow.
People like it, and there's no one around here that does it, so.
You're gonna put like a odometer on it so you can keep track of that in the future?
No, we charge per foot, so I kind of
Makes sense.
keep track of that.
Yeah, it was worth a shot. I guess it would probably be a pedometer if it's per foot. Just kidding.
Oh, man, you're full of
I'm
it.
sorry.
Gosh.
Just an interesting night, Mr. Smith.
Well done.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, guys, appreciate your time.
Thank you for your report and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
All right. That was it in terms of, you provided the letters. Okay, we'll move on to the next one then. Consideration of resolution numbers 1520, 1521, 1522, utility rate adjustments. Administrative Services Director's report, please.
Yes, Your Honor. As part of its responsibility to ensure the financial stability of our utility services, the City Council is required by the Riverton Municipal Code to review and adjust user fees for enterprise funds by resolution following public notice and a hearing. These periodic adjustments are essential to maintaining the financial health of these funds and ensuring the continued operation of our water, sewer, and sanitation services. I had my staff report prepared to kind of outline just briefly where we've been in the last couple of years, but I had a question from a citizen before the meeting tonight, and so I think that it's important that I take us back in history a little bit about our utility rates. Several years ago, back in 2018, the city did hire an independent consulting firm to analyze our city's current utility rate, the structure, and the associated cost. And the analysis determined what funding levels utilities would need to fund needed system development, refurbishment, repair, maintenance, operation, and ongoing costs. And they examined a substantial amount of data when this study was performed, including our financial data, including historical itemized budgets, income and expense statements, balance sheets, and operational costs. Borrowing and debt history, including historical and future ongoing obligations, long-term equipment repair and replacement schedules, capital improvement needs, including timing and costs, volume usage data per fund sorted by rate classes and codes, and rates and fee tables and rate resolutions. So there was a tremendous amount of information that went into that. At the time that that study was conducted, the professional recommendation of the consultant was to change the rate structure completely and bring pricing up to a level sufficient to support the current expenses associated with the utility infrastructure. And with that, he requested annually increasing rates to support ongoing and future costs. So to further that, this last year, the City of Riverton also partnered with the Wyoming Water Development Commission to complete a water master plan study. This study confirmed many of the components of our water and wastewater and sanitation infrastructure, confirmed that many components of our water system are aging and in need of upgrades. Some water and sewer lines are undersized, deteriorating, or built with outdated materials such as Orangeburg, Transite, and clay, making updates necessary. It's important to note that the enterprise funds operate separately and independently of the general fund of the city. Unlike a typical business, these funds are not designed to generate a profit, but rather to just provide the essential services while planning for future maintenance and replacements. Although grants and loans have helped fund a lot of our improvements, our funding partners have emphasized the need for regular rate reviews to ensure long-term sustainability of our system. Currently, all of our enterprise funds remain financially stable for operational costs. However, increasing capital demands, particularly within the water and wastewater systems, necessitate rate adjustments to keep pace with infrastructure needs. For fiscal year 2025, the water fund's operational revenue projections exceeded expenditures by just $69,173. To offset capital expenses, the City Council approved a transfer of $346,000 from our reserves. Moving forward, several million dollars in infrastructure repairs, replacements, and equipment purchases will be necessary, making a rate increase essential. The wastewater fund's operational revenues exceeded expenditures by $251,277. However, to address postponed capital needs, the budget includes a transfer of $550,718 to complete critical improvements, primarily at the treatment plant and for a system-wide meter replacement project, which you all know we're deep in the middle of right now. The sanitation fund's budget projects a revenue surplus of $202,074 over expenditures. However, $281,000 was approved for capital improvements, requiring a transfer from cash reserves to cover these costs. Our sanitation trucks run us about $300,000 apiece, and we have them on a systemic replacement schedule. Given the financial realities, the city staff recommends a utility rate adjustment as follows: a 5% increase to the water fund, a 5% increase to the wastewater fund, with plant investment fees rounded to the nearest dollar, and a 2% increase to the sanitation fund. These changes would take effect with the current billing cycle. So for further details, I've provided in your packet a breakdown of the current rates and proposed changes, starting on page 29. Additionally, I provided some sample residential bills based on usage for 3/4 inch and 1 inch meter sizes. Those are included on page 32 to illustrate the overall impact these adjustments will have on households. And I wanted to specifically refer to the sample bills for most of our residents are on 3/4 inch water meters. So a 3/4 inch water meter with 0 usage and a 90-gallon regular garbage container would show an impact of $2.89 per month increase. The average household, a 4,000 gallon water usage in a household, which is generally anywhere from 2 to 4 people, their bill would increase, including their usage, $4.29 per month. And then it goes up in usage based on, or up in value just based on usage. So a 12,000 gallon water usage bill would show an increase of $7.30 per month for all services, water, sewer, and sanitation services. And the impact that this would have, if we did a 5% proposed increase to the water fund, would bring in an additional $149,475 per year to the fund. The 5% recommendation to the wastewater fund would bring in an additional $129,000 per year. And the 2% recommendation for the sanitation fund would bring in $50,200 more per year than what we are currently bringing in. And with that, Your Honor, I would stand for any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Probably what we should do is just start going over these resolutions one at a time. So, Administrative Services Director, if you could please read, well, I guess you could just read all of them together, and then we could do the motions together. Let's do it that way, right?
Of course, Your Honor, yep.
If you could read resolutions numbers 1520, 1521, and 1522 by title only.
Resolution number 1520, a resolution adjusting the amount of user fees for the City of Riverton water system. Resolution number 1521, a resolution adjusting the amount of user fees for the City of Riverton wastewater system. Resolution number 1522, a resolution adjusting rates for the collection and disposal of garbage, rubbish, and debris.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 1520 supporting a 5% utility rate increase to the water fund.
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Carr with the motion, Councilmember Bailey with the second. Discussion. If you'd like, you could be recognized now, Mr. Canan.
I will. Name is Martin Canan. And, excuse me, I had requested a lot of this information
and just got it tonight here, so I'll just go over some of it that Ms. Harris has already covered. And again, I'll bring some of this out because I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not sure that some of the council members are aware of some of this stuff. From 2003 to the present, you've increased the utility rates every year except for 5 years. And some of those increased, the lowest was back in '04, where you increased altogether about 6%. Other increases were up to 54% over 1 year, over 30% 1 year. Since you've done the study in 19, you've averaged right around 8 to 10%. And this year you're talking 15%, or excuse me, 12%. I guess what I based some of my questions on were these increases due to that you're going to do a project, or that you're trying to keep up with inflation, or what? So some of the questions got answered, but again, I'll throw this out that when you're talking about a family or a person on a fixed income, if you're talking this year, let's say an increase of 12%, cost of living went up 2.5. The only year that you even came close to matching the cost of living was in 2022 at 8%. Other than that, the utility increases have been well over cost of living increases. So if you're talking about a family that's living on Social Security that gets anywhere from a 1.3% to a 2.5% increase of cost of living, and then you raise utility rates 12%, 15%, 50%, that's a chunk of change that's coming out of their pocket. And a lot of this, I can understand, when you look at it and you say, well, your bill only went up, $2. But let's be honest, in some cases, those $2 for the water, $2 for sewer, $2 for garbage, that's eating up part of their income. So I guess what I would throw out was, if that was my intent to come here and ask a lot of these questions as to what's driving it, other than just having a study back in 19 saying, hey, Riverton, you should be increasing your utility rates every year. Okay, great. That's nice for a study to tell me that, but what drove that study? Was it because that our utility rates in Riverton were so much lower than other cities that we, rather than jumping it 30% over 1 year, we said, well, to bring us up to a comparable level, we'll increase it 5, 10, 15% every year to get there? What was their rationale? I mean, it couldn't have been inflation because it's well over inflation. If you're talking about projects that are upcoming, again, I can understand that, but it's hard for a study 5 years ago, at least in my mind, to look and say, well, I know you're going to have to replace a pump. I know you're going to have to replace sewer lines. But again, I guess just to me, it doesn't make sense that a study can come up and look that far down the future and say, Riverton, you're going to need X amount of money in your water fund because 20 years down the road, you're going to have to do this.
And I understand, Mr. Kinane. I guess what I would say is, so up until 2019, and I was on the council then, you were on the council then. Were you on the council when, I was gonna say? Yeah. It had been a little bit of throwing a dart against a board. I mean, I think the recommendations were based on what the average, and I say that in jest, throwing a dart against the board. The average was meant to be in line with inflation, kind of like you're saying in the cost of living changes. So the reason we did the rate study was because we wanted to have something other than just inflation to go with. Have it be based on what does our infrastructure look like, what are the needs in the future, that sort of thing. And I agree, I mean, if we could do a rate study every year, that would be great, but they also cost money, and I don't remember what the last one cost, but I agree with you in terms of wanting to have that objective formula for it and everything. But that is, as far as I know, the first time we had done a rate study, and that was some conversation with Mr. Tolstead, who was really wanting to do better at exactly what you're saying, which is know what we want to do going forward for capital.
And I can understand that. I mean, I understand that, you know, there's experts out there that are saying, you know, hey, such and such a pump is 5 years old, and it's only normally has a 10-year lifespan, so 5 years down the road, I'm gonna have to replace that pump. Oh, by the way, this section of the city has sewer lines that's 50 years old, and oh, by the way, it's time to replace that section of the city. But I guess I would say, as a member of the public, rather than just reading on County 10 or in the paper that you're increasing my utility rates by 10, 12, 15%, that it would be nice maybe for the council or the city to put out some information as to why you're doing that, so you don't have a person like me that all of a sudden sends in the email and says, you know, how many years have you increased utility rates? Well, since 03 to 24, every year except 5, I've increased utility rates. What increases have you done? 10%, 15, you know, so 25%. There's a 30%, 54%. So, I mean, it would just be nice to have that information as to, I understand, I mean, nothing's free out there. You know, I know you're not going to replace a pump for free. I know you're not going to replace a sewer line for free. But I'm just thinking, when you tell me your rate increase as a private citizen, I look at that and say, well, what did the cost of living, what's inflation? And I'm going, whew, man, you increased my rate by 12% and my cost of living only went up 2%. What's going on?
Your Honor.
Mr. Bailey,
Okay.
go ahead.
Mr. Canan, your math's a little flawed there. You can't add the percentages together to get 12%. Okay, it's 5% on water, 5% on sewer, and 2% on sanitation. Okay, they're not added together. That's 5%. If you average them together, the average bill with water, sewer, and sanitation will go up less than 5%. Okay?
Well,
You
but if
can't
you're
add the
raising
three
my
together.
water rate by 5%,
Correct.
so my bill goes up $2.
Again, Ms. Harris gave us the information that the average house with 4,000 gallons of usage goes up $2.89. That's all three put together. So it's probably it's a little bit less than 5%. You can't add the three numbers together. The math doesn't work that. It's not a 30% if you raise each one of them 10%. That means it's 10% total.
Well,
But, I mean, your argument still is correct that we did a study, and we reinforced that with a study a year ago that showed, I forget how many miles of water and sewer line that are outdated, clay pipe, you know, Orangeburg, all those. Okay, we have all this money that we're gonna have to spend, and we are not even keeping up with the expected failure of these lines. So,
I understand that, sir.
we
That's
have
what I'm saying.
tens of millions of dollars that we have to spend over the next, again, I don't remember the number from a year ago when the guy gave us the number, but it's like $50 million over the next 25, 30 years that we have to spend to just keep the lines that are gonna be failing, that are out of old materials. They're not PVC, they're iron and clay pipe and all that kind of stuff. And our water treatment plant is how many years old? 40 years old? And it's starting to get to that point where now we're having to replace pumps and filters and, you know, all these components that are extremely expensive. And so there is a reason that we have to do it. And this 5% increase just barely will keep up with inflation, no less the expected additional costs.
I understand what you're telling me, and like I said, I understand that nothing is free, and I understand that you have to keep up with the infrastructure. I guess my big thing is that if you would explain that to the general public, rather than just putting out that, oh, by the way,
we're increasing the rates.
We're increasing utility rates, and somebody goes, you increased them last year, and you increased them the year before that, and the year before that. And I think what the general public is looking for as what am I, in a little bit of, what am I getting, what kind of a bang am I getting for my buck? You know, am I putting this money away because 5 years down the road, I've got to replace my water treatment plant? Makes sense to me. Am I putting this in the bank so that such and such a section of Riverton is getting in a new sewer line because the old one is collapsing?
Yeah.
It makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But to see that we've increased utility rates year after year after year after year, and the general public goes, what's going on? Nothing happened in my neighborhood. You know, I turned the water on and my water still ran, so the water treatment plant is still running. What's going on? And I think that's what the public is looking for. What are you saving up for? What is your long term? What are you looking to replace?
Your Honor.
What do you need the money in the bank for?
Right. And I think that's part of why the rate study was done, part of why the water master plan was done. I will note, I just did a little bit of math with my bill, which she said the average amount of water by 2 to 4 people. We've got the average amount of water probably by 20 people, because I have 8 people in my house and 3 of them are teenagers and they tend to take long showers. There's an old cranky guy in the house who tends to take long showers too. But for me, when you take it, it's not that, and I think Mr. Bailey was right, it's not that you're taking 5 plus 5 plus 2. It turns out to be about 4%, just because each bill is disparate. So I just want to make sure for the public, kind of like you're saying, for the public's information, we're not talking about a 12% increase on top of inflation that has been crazy for all of us. But we are talking about a 4% increase or so on your whole bill.
I totally understand that, but like I said, but when the general public
Yeah.
reads your agenda item,
Yeah.
it promptly says supporting a 5% increase in water, a 5% increase in wastewater, and a 2% increase in sanitation.
I agree.
So the average person,
Right.
and maybe I'm dumber than the average person, but the average person looks at that and goes,
That's 12.
man, that's 12%
I
that the
can do
city
math.
is raising it. So again, I think maybe the city could do a better job of explaining why you're increasing the utility rate and quote, oh, by the way, it's not increasing 12%. Your bill is going to go from here to here, you know.
Right. That's a good point, because one of the things we've been talking about a lot is better ways to communicate. And we kind of have our, we just want to try to make it so that it's like, we don't have people sitting there and looking at it and getting confused. So we try to just be like, this is exactly what we're doing. But the negative of that is then people have to be able to read between the lines a little bit and say, okay, it's actually the average of 5 and 5 and 2, which you're right. I think we could kind of look at that and finesse it a little bit in future years. And I appreciate the feedback.
Your Honor, could I just make a brief statement? And it's always nice to have former Councilman Canan here.
I love it.
And I mean that genuinely.
I do.
Enjoyed working with you when you were a council member, and I value the points you're bringing up today. From historical perspective, I want to just make sure it's clear. Previously, prior to the rate study, the city council had opportunity by code to review the rates every year and compare it against the CPIU, or the Consumer Price Index. And that was something each council each year had an opportunity to do as a baseline. However, in addition to that, I know each council in the past took very seriously the responsibility of operating a water, sewer, and sanitation system, but also the impact on the residents in town. So in addition to considering the CPIU, I know every time, at least since I've been here, a rate has been proposed, analysis was done by staff regarding future capital needs and operating needs. So it is always something staff brings forward very seriously because they understand the impact on the residents. And I know that the council takes it very seriously as well. So even prior to the rate study being completed, it was a very methodical, thank you. This is why I have good people with me. Process. It's not something that's done arbitrary in any means. When you set rates, you make sure that you cover the cost of the utility and the future capital outlay. Deferred maintenance is the quickest way over a long period of time to damage the health, safety, and welfare of your community. If we as a city did not consider the replacement cost of the plant, the lines, and everything else that goes into providing utilities, we would be in a situation at some point where residents couldn't have confidence in drinking their water. And we never want to get to that point. And so, again, this is something I know Ms. Harris has spent a lot of time on just this year, and also Mr. Eggleston, in looking at the capital needs and the operating needs. And I can say that was done in the past as well. In fact, my predecessor, when I was Public Works Director, Bill Urberkite, brought his utility bills in one year and showed the comparison, and I think it just is a good testament to him, to the work that he did when he was Public Works Director as well. The utility rate study, while now dated by some years, is a good reference point, but it was not the only point that was examined when we looked at the utility rates. Ms. Harris spent a significant amount of time, and so did Mr. Eggleston. So it's a helpful point to refer back to. And a lot of information, as Ms. Harris said, went into that utility rate study. And I think communicating with the public, just one last point, is something that we think is important, and we'll always strive to be better. And we had a water master plan open house several months ago, and it was disheartening to the city that no one from the public came to it after advertising it. So maybe that's a message to us that we need to advertise differently, or maybe make the master plan meetings more attractive. But we strive to have public meetings, we strive to communicate the needs of our system, and we take Mr. Canan's points to heart that we will do everything we can to communicate in a better way.
And I echo that in terms of, I appreciate the feedback. I understand the confusion that it creates too, and I certainly was not trying to suggest that it was as simple as throwing a dart against a dartboard. But it is nice to have something that somebody else looks at as a third party, right? And they say, hey, this is what us looking at it, not from the inside looking at it, but from the outside looking at it, these are your needs. And so that's why I appreciated the rate study. And this is a little bit more than what had been initially proposed for the rate study. And that's because last year we got to a point where the water fund, we were just about in the negative. I mean, what were we at, 5,000 or something at the end of the fiscal year? We were close. It felt like it was that close, but maybe I'm exaggerating just to make a point. It was close.
Your Honor. Yep. We had a major water break last year. It may have been right at the end of the year before, I can't remember. But the big water line that goes from the water treatment plant up to the tank on the hill, I can't remember what size, big.
24-inch.
2-foot diameter. Okay, it broke right where it goes under the canal, and, you know, it's in a tube under the canal. That repair alone cost $130-something thousand.
Which is less, or close to the amount that we're talking about as an increase.
And we lost 5 million gallons of water in like a day. And so, you know, thank goodness that didn't happen in the middle of the August when it was 100 degrees or whatever, but.
Did you say tank goodness? I like that.
Thank goodness, yeah. So, again, and we probably do need to do a better job of getting out to the public what we got from the state, you know, the water plan of how many dollars we need to spend over this X amount of time to just keep up with the system that we have now. And that's not building any new water and sewer. That's not building a new water, you know, sewer treatment plant. This is just keeping up the stuff we have to where it'll run and do what it needs to do right now, so.
And I will say, some of the building that we have done, when it has been improvements or that kind of thing, not just to lines, you know, collection and distribution, it's been generally grant funded.
Right.
We're talking about, this is just keeping up with what we have. Did you want to say something? Let me get to Councilwoman Johnson, because she's tried to chime in a couple of times, and then we'll get to you. Sound good?
It's okay. Before I make a full statement, I just wanted to ask, and maybe Mr. Eggleston can answer this, is there any federal or state grants available to help with infrastructure repairs like that or replacements that we've seeked?
Your Honor, Councilwoman Johnson, there is Wyoming Water Development Commission funds. Those can be used on the major portion of the system, the transmission part of the system, the big main lines that feed the distribution. You can get 50% of a total project from those monies while they hold out. You can also get loans through the State Loan and Investment Board for state revolving funds for clean water and drinking water. Those are, you have to take out a loan on those, and right now they're about 1% interest. You still have to make that debt service. You still have to pay that debt service back. So that really impacts our, going into our capital budget every year, we have to take our debt service off the top of that, right off the bat, just to pay our existing debt.
Okay.
Like, just for example, if I might, just our operation and maintenance projections, just operation and maintenance to 2032 is $16,115,000. If you look at system-wide, including improvements, or add improvements on that, it's, well, let's just go to 2052, the end of the study. To keep the system operational, maybe a few upgrades here and there, you're looking at $70,245, today's numbers. And we've got 18.13 miles of water line that was installed in 1916. It's
Still in service.
still in service. It's exceeded its lifespan, and it's probably leaking like a sieve. But those are some of the examples.
Some of the fears that we have is we have a pretty similar sized community that just, 2 years ago was under a boil order. And that's certainly what we don't want to be. Go ahead, Ms. Karen.
That's okay. I always seem to be the oddball out on these issues. I'm not a fan of raising rates on anybody. Looking at, our weekly report, there's over 300 people with shut-off letters that went out, over 400 people that incurred late fees. And I think that in regards to, is it Canaan? Canaan, I'm sorry. I would agree with you. I looked at the history as well, and we have raised rates every year. I understand that the city needs to be able to do those repairs and keep things functional. However, I think that the general public and the community is so tired of being taxed and rate increases, and at every turn, everything's going up, but nobody's paycheck is going up. And people are struggling. And I think that this year we need to recognize that and maybe give it a break for a year. I'm not going to be supporting the rate increases this year.
Thank you, Councilwoman Johnson. All right.
Your
Your
Honor.
Councilman Carr.
Just
not
a
gonna
couple
forget you.
questions and comments. It's really, really important to remember the cost of living is not equate to the cost of construction. Since the early 2000s, we've had, what kind of buffers are you putting on your construction costs now?
A couple years ago, when we, excuse me, Your Honor, thank you.
Go ahead.
2 years ago, when we were setting up our force projects for the year, we put in a 10% buffer that didn't touch it.
Nope. We've typically been adding 15 to 25%, depending on the project and the location. 25%. That's unheard of.
Compared to a year ago?
Compared to a year or two, yeah. Did our WWDC plan include a rate study? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
It did include a rate study. I haven't, I've gleaned over it a couple times, but I don't have that data with me tonight.
Okay, and that's okay. Having performed 3 water master plans that I can remember in my professional life, I can tell you that most cities that I've looked at, their rates are woefully low. To the tune that if a major issue arose, the city would go broke trying to fix it. And that's fact, that there's an economic reality there. I would highly recommend reading the studies that were done. There is a lot of effort that goes into, especially the Wyoming Water Development Commission reports. You can look those up online through the state library. An immense amount of work goes into those. And it is, pardon me, it is definitely not throwing a dart at a dartboard. They're highly scientific, they're engineered, and what those studies try to present is not only a replacement cost, but expansion cost. They look at the rate of growth in the community, they look at how much usage the community has, how much system-wide leakage and infiltration and that the system has. Because when our water treatment plant treats water, it's not just treating water that is flushed down toilets and that goes down drains. It's treating surface water, or groundwater, sometimes surface water. So all of those costs, you know, we have a $35 million facility up on the hill that treats our drinking water, probably $50 million now. We have probably equally that treating our wastewater, and at some point those will need to be either upgraded or replaced. Do we have $70 million in our enterprise funds? No, we do not. I don't like raising rates either, but there's an economic reality to being statutorily bound to provide clean drinking water and clean discharge water. We are regulated by the state on that. If anybody wants to ask more questions about water master planning, feel free. But my guess is that even with these increases, we're still going to be woefully inadequate, but it will be better. That's all I had.
Thank you. All right.
I agree completely.
I'm not going to try to pronounce your name. You said it already, and then you spelled it, and I thought that would help.
It doesn't. Chancey Wilzeski, again, this is the topic that I came here to talk about tonight. I feel like my perspective may come out of left field. I don't mind paying the rate increases. I'm a homeowner here. I plan on being a homeowner here for the rest of my life, and I plan on my children being homeowners here. Looking at the data, it is easy to perceive that Riverton has been falling behind on its infrastructure since 1916 when we installed water lines. So I plan on being here next year when this conversation is had. I don't know how many of you plan on being here, but next year I'll be asking, did my rate increases help us catch up, or did you fail to help us catch up? I don't want to bankrupt the city 20 years from now. I don't want to experience a terrible disaster when I have a squeaky floorboard in my house or I have an appliance going out. I can take care of that, but I don't have the right and I don't have the ability to drill my own well in town, and I don't have the right or the ability to handle my own septic in town. I have to rely on you to do that for me and my children.
Your Honor. Just a real quick question, or in our current water master plan that was just done, how many projects did they outline for our capital improvement plan? Ballpark, it doesn't need to be exact.
Say 20.
20 projects?
It's probably a good question then. You know what I mean? Next year to be like, okay, how many of those have we been able to knock out or get some work done on? It's not a bad way to consider it.
Yeah. Are we closer to avoiding disaster or farther from it?
Anything else you wanted to add?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor.
Thank you.
Yeah, the big bucks are replacing the line that's from 1918. I mean, that's where the big bucks are. You know, I think the city does a pretty good job of efficiently running the system. You know, it isn't like we have hundreds of employees that are out there, you know, fixing water lines. I mean, we're fixing the ones that break, and we're trying to work projects in to increase, you know, to replace water lines. If we're going in with the Forest Committee and redoing a street, we try to redo the water and sewer line while we're there so that we're not digging the street up twice. And so, I mean, I think the city does a pretty good job of being as frugal as possible. Is there room for improvement? I'm sure there is. But, so.
Ma'am, you're welcome.
My name's Linda Drury. Thank you for letting me speak. Where I live, our fire hydrant has not worked ever.
Where are you at?
I'm just right over here. 6th Street. Yep.
Spruce and Sixth.
Got a big project planned for that this summer.
Good.
And that's been 24 years that that fire hydrant has not worked.
You can come up so that, we've got people in the audience and people on video. There's no reason you can't be there together.
But it's been broke for years. They told me they can't get the parts for them anymore, the fire hydrant. He goes, we're just gonna have to replace the whole line if it comes down to it. And it's been, if kids don't just take the dill off and play with it, take the sign off saying it's out of service, you won't even know it's out of service. And I was a fireman at one time. So.
Well, I appreciate it. And that's good to know. We had somebody that actually just emailed me the other day and said they had a fire hydrant that was out of service, and I let Mr. Eggleston know about it, and that got taken care of pretty quick, and it sounds like they have plans for this one.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the feedback on that. You can add whatever you wanted to.
Nigger rates go up, but it doesn't get fixed.
Yeah.
In our place, so. And it's irritating.
I hear
I
you.
went from $80 to $100. If I water my lawn, it's $200.
Right.
Our lawn's not gonna get watered because we can't afford it. I mean, we have a household budget too. You know, if something breaks, we've got to take care of it. So,
I've been back for about 13 years. The first bills I got, I think were somewhere in the neighborhood of 60, 70. Now we're about right at 100 and something.
yeah, and there's only 2 of us in our household. And our bill's over $100 a month.
I could have my kids come take showers at your place. That might.
No, thank you. I raised 2 kids. I don't need any more. And also, I'm curious to know where the water comes from to water the parks and this area out here and Sunset Park. Where does all that water come from?
Mr. Eggleston could tell you, we actually just talked about this, so go ahead.
A lot of the water in like J.C. Park, City Park, with the exception of Rhine Park, is irrigation water. We have irrigation pumps that water those fields up there.
One of the city employees told me they've been watering this Sunset Park with city water for a long time.
They have they can switch over to city water if they need to, if it gets dry, but generally we use the irrigation water.
And then,
Isn't that hard on our pumps if we're using,
well, we filter the water though. I mean, it's
Right.
irrigation water.
but you're still using
City
city
water.
water to do that? Isn't that running our pumps even more
this
unnecessarily?
water treatment plant.
No, that water that I'm talking about comes through the irrigation lines out of the Leclerc ditch.
But he said you're running city water in there.
From time to time, they do, yes.
So that was my question, isn't that running the pumps more unnecessarily than need to be?
You're using millions of water out of our city water system.
Right.
You're not using irrigation like you're supposed to be. So,
They do use city water occasionally, but generally speaking, it's the irrigation water.
Right.
I agree, if they would be using city water, we have had situations where we've been in a pretty drought sort of circumstances where that has adjusted as necessary. But I understand the feedback.
you're saying you're having troubles with your water and that, and I'm just saying, if you can go back to irrigation, that'd be great.
And that's,
They used to do that a long time ago.
that's for the most part what they are using, though. And I know what you had heard from a city employee, and I guess that's something we can kind of check in on.
Your Honor, if I may, where there's irrigation available, we try to use it. City Park runs off of a well. There's a well in City Park. It's one of the older ones, and that's how that one's watered. Rhine Park runs off of city water, and that is something that we monitor in our system. That's why we have reservoirs. We're able to store the water and then use the water, and we do monitor the pressures. I think Brian appropriately covered Sunset Park and J.C. Park. Teeter Park is one where there's not irrigation directly adjacent, so we do have to use city water on that, similar to Monroe Park. So some of it is where the irrigation infrastructure is as it comes from LeClaire or Riverton Valley. And I think Brian appropriately communicated that for some parks, we're able to use that irrigation water. For others, we have to use city water. And then in the case of City Park, we do use a well.
It'd feel nice to have, feel better if you have my fire hydrant working.
I appreciate that. Well,
Hopefully this summer, we will have that done.
I'll tell you what, you give us a couple of months and then come back and talk to us if it's not. All right? We'll follow up.
Your Honor, if I may, I appreciate those comments. Mr. Eggleston and his team have been working on a Spruce Street improvement as it relates to utilities. In fact, as our team is, we're very aggressive seeking grants so that we don't have to increase rates more than necessary. We received money from the state of Wyoming to help us with these Spruce Street improvements. And I'm sure Brian will go to his team and talk about that fire hydrant and see if it's something that could or could not be included in this project that's just about to be awarded.
That was my understanding. When you were telling about where it was, I was wondering if that was part of the same. Good. Keep us posted. Mr. Warpness, did you want to speak? I just see you sneaking up here.
Not very fast, I might add. Ron Warpness, Mayor Hancock and staff. This is a wide-ranging discussion, and I am really enjoying it. You're covering a lot of topics here, and I have been down that road numerous times, and I will bring up another subject that will muddy the waters a little bit more, and it's something that I think it's getting to the root cause of, or not cause of, but I'd like to ask a simple question regarding the issue at hand, utility rate adjustments. What's the city doing to mitigate the budgetary pressure that is causing this need for utility rate adjustments? Okay.
Your Honor.
I think we can get to it after you get done with it,
Okay.
Mr. Warpness.
Anyone that has been in business knows that if you have a shortfall in the budget area, you either need to cut back where you can reduce employees' time or positions, or look for more income. Regarding utilities, the city is in an enviable position of a monopoly. It does not have to cut back, as it can always increase income by raising rates. The paying population has no choice but to pay those rates. Whatever you decide, and I'm not here to argue for or against rate increases, having been down that road. I agree with Councilman Carr that I remember reading a book when I was in office, and it said that every municipality in the United States is bankrupt. That you get money to build things, but you don't get money to provide the repair and maintenance costs for those millions of dollars that you've built. And when that bill comes due, how are you going to pay for it? Okay. So anyway, I'd like to offer a partial solution that could be of great help if you're willing to hear the solution, my solution. I come up with solutions sometimes, and people look at me and shake their heads and think I'm smoking something. And that may be true, I don't know. But I know it's not true. I don't smoke anything. But it may appear that way sometimes. But the solution that I came up, or is obvious as the nose on your face, I think, when I was in office, Stephen Weaver, city administrator, and I went up to Jackson. And they were spending a lot of money up there, and they had a lot of grants and using different ways of a municipality has of getting money to build solar collectors all over their community. 70% of the power at that time, according to Mark Barron, who was the mayor at that time up there, 70% of the power in Jackson was being provided by solar power. How much is provided in Riverton? Nothing. Okay? And yet you have the water treatment plant, you have the sewer treatment plant, and you have this building. And all of them have large, flat acreages that you could put a lot of solar collectors on. And it wouldn't solve all the problems, but it would give you a resource, an income to get ahead of that curve, okay? I've got 2 commercial buildings, and I put solar collectors on both of them. On my Chandel Event Center, we just pay the minimum, is all we pay for all of the electricity in that building, okay? On the USDA building, we put solar power on that. The state has capped how much I can have, but it's paying about 40% of the power needs of that building, and it saved us hundreds of dollars so far, okay? And for the city not to be doing that, I think is terribly short-sighted. And it would help you get ahead of, so the discussion about enterprise funds, I understand that. I think it's a specious argument personally, that whenever the airport is an enterprise fund, it's never paid for itself. You're always subsidizing it. Where does that subsidy money come from? You transfer it out of wherever you need to transfer it out of. The same thing with the water fund. If it gets too low and you have something break, you take it out of reserves, and on and on and on. And all of it comes back to money again. And if you were taking advantage of generating some extra income, and not income, when I put my solar collectors on, I didn't do it for the income. I did it for the avoided costs of the utility power bills that were going up, and that happens to be electric. I'm trying to figure out a way to do it for gas, but I haven't got that figured out yet. So at any rate, those are just some thoughts that I have. And I talked with Mr. Urbicite, Bill Urbicite, and I went round and round on that. And the only solar power deal that Bill was able to come up with was on the museum down south of town here, that it's got a little solar collector on it that has the lights up this, and that was the extent of it. It was just a dismal failure on my part, so anyway.
Well, and we also do have a solar panel, although be it a small one, down on Monroe for what that's worth.
Well, wonderful.
For the stop sign there.
Wonderful.
It's a very small one.
Okay.
But thank you,
So
Mayor.
that's just an idea to think about, to try to get ahead of the curve, because everything you're talking about requires money.
Right.
And if you've got a hole in your budget, you need to figure out a way to plug that hole if you can. And we've got nothing but flat ground around here. Up in Jackson, they have nothing but building right next to the river or right on the side of a mountain.
Right.
And yet they were able to do it. And I think we can do it too, but it requires vision on somebody's part, and I just haven't seen it to this point, so.
Well, and money. They don't make them free.
No, well, they don't.
We would have to get a very large grant to put in solar panels to offset the cost of the grant.
But the cost per kilowatt hour has come down significantly.
Has gotten better.
I can tell you that.
I agree.
And
When they
that's,
first started doing that, it was not as
that's,
good.
that's right.
But-
And now that the federal administration is going out, they're not pushing solar quite as much as the previous one was. But
Yeah. Well, thank
we're
you.
not having to worry about electric cars either. But
That's another conversation.
but that's the reason that you have solar power on your senior citizen center now, is to offset some of their costs. And I was instrumental in getting that there. In fact, I received a $400 finder's fee to Creative Energy out of Lander for putting them together. So it's doable. But you have to have somebody that sees that vision and not just, well, we're, investing in something that you'll never get a return on. That's not true. I can speak with certitude. So, thank you.
Sir. All right.
Your Honor,
Yes, ma'am.
I just
Since you're the
wanted
only
to say,
other one who hasn't spoken.
I think I am the only one. When I sit up here, I'm a citizen first. And my train of thought is, how is this going to affect the public? I'm a citizen, I have bills. There's 2 people in my house. One of them's retired, so it's pretty fixed income. And I don't have the ability to work overtime and make all this extra money. So it's a set income. And when we talk about raising rates, this affects everyone. It affects all of us sitting up here, and we don't take it lightly. I also know that in the morning, I like to take a shower. I like to be able to use the bathroom. I want to have clean water. I want to know that it's going to get out to the street. If it doesn't, we've got a problem. But we're looking at pipes that are 100 and some years old. I mean, we have to take that stuff into account. If we don't, we're irresponsible. So I'm going to vote in favor of this, as much as it hurts. I mean, I told my husband about it, and he's like, oh, great, our bill's going to go up. I mean, isn't that what we all think? But at the same time, this stuff doesn't get fixed by magic. We have to have the funds in place to have that, catastrophe fixed. Because if we don't, people are going to be clamoring at the city door, wondering why they don't have water. So that's all I have to say.
All right. I don't think you've said anything either. And not that I'm trying to encourage some long
No,
discussions or filibustering.
No, Your Honor, I believe that we have a responsibility first to, provide for the best water we can. In fact, statistically speaking, communities that have good water actually are better communities, hands down. So I understand the frustration as somebody that doesn't want to pay more, but it's probably the number one priority that we have as a community is first to take care of that infrastructure, I think. Legally speaking. Yeah, and so I think that that's where I stand. So, thank you.
All right. But we still have each of these to vote on one at a time.
Okay.
I think the motion was for the 5% utility rate increase to the water fund. Any other discussion? I mean, I know we've talked a lot generally about the utility increase, but I guess specifically as touching that 5% increase. Anything else on that?
All
As
for the
I'd already
question.
said. All right, we'll vote. All in favor of Resolution 1520, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
All right. I vote aye. Motion passes. I'd entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 1521, supporting a 5% utility rate increase to the wastewater fund.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Bailey with the motion. Councilman Carr with the second. Any discussion on this one? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Vote aye. Motion passes. Entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 1522, supporting a 2% utility rate increase to the sanitation fund.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Carr with the motion, Councilwoman Borders with the second. Any discussion here? General, our healthiest fund. Not as much of the kind of situation we've had with
It's a different
wastewater
kind
and
of
water
infrastructure.
in terms of the emergency needs. We still do have some pretty pricey needs there. And I guess the other thing is we do have also the upcoming possibility whenever things get changed around with the Lander transfer station that we're going to have to be drawing out to Sandra.
Yeah.
which may mean 2-3 years from now, whenever that occurs, we may have more expenses associated with sanitation depending. I mean, am I wrong, Mr. Eggleston, just depending on how all that goes?
Your Honor, you're correct. Obviously, we're looking at a very high level right now, but there would be additional costs, definitely.
And I know we had to get into reserves, and I really appreciated your report, Ms. Harris. We had to get into reserves for water and wastewater. Did we have to for sanitation last year?
Your Honor, we did, but part of the reason for that was because we had carryover. We had ordered a sanitation truck that did not come in before the end of the year. So essentially, it was just a cash carryover.
Okay. All right. Still, though, was one of the ones that the recommended increase was 2% for this one in particular. I know that for water and wastewater, that was a little bit less, but we've had needs that have suggested, especially particularly collection and distribution of that main line.
Yeah.
Okay. Just, I had the same thing last year. It was like, of all the ones, you know, that we could say, hey, would be less or not have an increase, sanitation is one. So I just want to have that as some discussion, I guess. But anything else? That was just my ranting and raving.
That's it?
Yeah.
Mostly rant.
Mostly the ramp.
All in favor of passage of Resolution 1522, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
All right. I vote aye on that one as well. All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here and for your perspective.
Thank you, Johnson. Appreciate it.
Moving on, Airport Hangar Ground Lease Agreement, 10 High Aviation LLC. Public Works Director's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Earlier this year, our airport division manager was contacted by Sam Linden of 10 High Aviation about leasing lots 10 and 11 on Block 1, File 1, Riverton Regional Airport. He wants to build an executive hangar. He and his partners consist of 120 foot by 120 foot, or 14,400 square feet, executive hangar at the airport. This is the last lot that's least accessible right now by the general aviation apron. It's kind of on the line of, it would split a line on probably lot 11 or lot 10, whichever they decide to build on. However, part of our airport master plan is we're replatting the entire airport because we have hangars now that are on lot lines, and it's just not very good. So my guess, and I'd speculate on it, we'll probably recover some of that 29,000 square foot of lot eventually. This was originally a lease held by the Bureau of Land Management when they had their seat base here, their single-engine air tankers. This lease proposed is a 10-year lease with the option of 3 5-year renewals for a total of 25 years. There's also a paragraph in the lease that allows, after that 25 years, as long as the hangar is still in good condition and being maintained, that they can negotiate another lease with the city at the expiration of the first lease. Our recommendation would be to permit this lease to move forward. It's based on $18 per, or 18 cents per square foot, which is comparable to the rest of the state of Wyoming. In fact, the average in the state of Wyoming for similar properties right now is just a little over 17 cents per square foot, so we're a little high. It would generate $2,592 a year in lease payments for the airport. And I'd stand for any questions if you have any.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to approve the new ground hangar lease for 10 High Aviation at the Central Wyoming Regional Airport.
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Bailey with the motion, Councilwoman Borders with the second. Any discussion on this one? I had a quick question. Have we usually had a first right of refusal in there for purchasing the building or improvements?
Your Honor, Council, the last several lease agreements we've done, we've incorporated that into all the new leases.
I thought so.
Yep,
I think it's a good idea.
it is.
Policy.
We thought it was.
I think if, if they were wanting to quit the lease, being able to say, okay, we don't want to just have somebody else buying it. Gotcha. Well, I really appreciate that and appreciate you with that idea as a way to adjust the leases, because.
This man here figured it out before I did.
Good.
Your Honor. Again, not involved in the lease, but I noticed the building's sort of got a funky angle on the one side. Where's the door gonna be?
It'll be, Your Honor, Councilman Bailey, the diagram you see right in front of you is basically the plotted dimensions based on the
Lot.
total square footage.
Okay,
The building will fit neatly well within that footprint.
so that's not the building outline,
No.
that's the lot outline.
That's the lot out.
Okay, all right, that makes
Makes
sense.
sense. Yeah,
More,
that'd
more
be-
sense.
That'd be pretty odd.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
decide
right.
how you could wiggle an airplane
Yeah, what's
through the
happened there?
crack.
Yeah.
That's the budget, 11,000 square foot.
Got corners.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to make note of a spelling correction on the
Oh,
lease.
please do.
Sorry. Section B, I guess it's double I, under the city's rights and obligations. The agreement does not authorize the city to inspect confidential records. Is that files or flies? Or documents? I think it's supposed to be files.
Should be filed.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
It'd be interesting.
That's why I was like, is it like flights that we're not allowed to look at, or?
Is that an
Pretty sure it's
airport?
files.
Do we want to indicate files and flies? I mean, just to cover our bases, or
Flying files.
flying?
Flying files.
Flies that fly? I don't know.
Okay. Any issue taking care of that without any particular vote on the amendment there, Mr. Eggleston?
Your Honor, we can correct that.
Okay. Thank you very much for noting that. And,
Good catch.
yeah,
It's just my OCD, but go ahead.
good. Anything else? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. I vote aye. Motion passes. That was our last business item. I would consider a motion to adjourn unless we don't have any reason for an executive session, do we?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Move to adjourn?
Second?
Motion by Councilman Carr to adjourn, second by Councilwoman Johnson. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. 9:35 PM. We are adjourned.
Hey, that's not bad.
Earlier than I told
I
Delaney.
was gonna say, like, that's
She said,
actually
"How late
not a
will you be here?"
horrible
And I
thing.
said, 10 o'clock.
I can't ever figure out how to turn this thing.